Joining me on the stage is our candidate for District 1, Dr. Suk Kaur. I go back to being regular height. Thank you for joining us here tonight, Dr. Kaur. I would like to dive right in if you are not opposed to it. If we have 2 minutes on the clock. Childcare is often referred to as a textbook example of a failed market. It costs too much for families at the time when they can least afford it. It pays too little for the educators who make $11.35 on average an hour. And childcare centers are making little to no profit and often shrinking and even closing. Employers are often left bearing the brunt of lack of access to affordable care for their families and their workers. If you were elected to City Council, what would you do to help rectify this challenge for so many involved?
Thank you so much, and what a great question. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. I feel like my heart is at home right now. Thank you all so much. Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for showing up and showing out today. And thank you so much to the organizers. I think this is the first ever forum for mayor and city council on learning childhood and youth. Is that correct?
I think so.
Well, let's give ourselves a round of applause. This work is so important, and that is actually why I chose to run for city council 2 years ago, because I've been in the K-12 education space for the last 16 years. I have the pleasure of working with many of you all and know deeply the challenges that our educators face. Solving poverty should not rest on the shoulders of our teachers. And at $11 per hour in early childhood, that's not possible. We have to deeply invest in this rather than investing on the back end on adding additional officers to public safety, rather than adding on the back end to infrastructure, where if you go in my district, you can very clearly see the economic divide that exists. If you walk from one zip code to the other, you'll be like, wow, one zip code has accessible, walkable, tree-covered sidewalks, and the other has nothing. And that is the systemic problem that has occurred over years. And it was mind-boggling to me. I've learned so much in the last 2 years, and it was mind-boggling to me why this occurs, and it's actually systemic reasons. So to answer the question in the last 30 seconds, one of the things that I think we absolutely have to do is figure out a way to grow our high-quality childcare model. We have to train our childcare centers to know what that looks like, provide additional funding in whatever ways we can. So many of you all advocated for that property tax relief, which is just a small piece. But even that small piece can add up to create massive change. So we have to continue to create policy that's going to help make childcare facilities more financially sustainable, and at the same time train our teachers and educators with curriculum that we know is successful, using the centers in our community that already have that high quality success.
Building on that, moving into our youth, we know that K-12 provides an abundance of support to our young people. Beyond that, San Antonio has numerous youth development organizations providing vital out-of-school time services. If elected, how will you ensure that San Antonio becomes a gold standard for how we support young people, their workforce, and their career trajectories?
Absolutely. So when I was block walking the first time, someone told me, you should be running for school board. And I actually responded saying, you know, school board members only get to affect the 8 hours a day a kid is in school, but city council affects all of the rest of the time. You know, our numbers for the amount of after-school care dollars haven't increased for the providers that we've been supporting. Our delegate agency funds, those are so important. We just went through a huge analysis of our delegate agency funding in partnership with DHS, and thanks to all of some of y'all's input, we learned some of the barriers that we put into place. Like the amount of metrics we ask folks to submit to us, the amount of hoops we expect people to jump through to get their dollars, but we know the work that they're doing is important. So we have to be able to track outcomes. Trust me, I'm a data accountability person. We have to be able to track outcomes while still not putting barriers in front of the work. And we've talked about this a lot, figuring out how to consolidate services. Our funding, unfortunately, is not unending, and we're going to go through some really tough cuts this budget cycle. I was just talking with Greg this morning, and a news reporter asked me, what are you going to cut? And I'm like, it's such a hard question to answer. So we have to figure out how to work smartly. who are the organizations that are doing similar work, and how can we bring them together to say, let's really focus on mental health supports, because we know that's needed, and especially telehealth. How can we increase that? And within our arts organizations, we know our arts organizations are so great for connecting the right and left side of students' brains. How do we figure out really how to support them in a way that creates access for all of our communities so portions of them aren't left out? So I think it's both working smartly and efficiently to continue to support our nonprofit organizations that are doing that out of school time work, and then being a resource. I think the more we can advocate, ask the right questions on council, the more folks know that we are here to support them, I think is really important. And I hope that the nonprofit community and the school K-12 school community has seen in the last 2 years how important we think that is.
Thank you, and way to keep your focus, right? Moving parts, but we appreciate that. If you don't mind, we're going to have your running mate, Patty Gibbons, come to the stage right now. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you.
I am going to ask that second question again to get your perspective. We know that K-12 provides an abundance of support to our young people. Beyond that, San Antonio has numerous youth development organizations providing vital out-of-school time services. If elected, how will you ensure San Antonio becomes a gold standard for how we support young people, their workforce, and their career trajectories?
Oh, I love this question. Can you all hear me? Okay. So I'm a mother of 6 and 11 children, 11 grandchildren. And this is a question that any mother asks themselves, especially as we go into the summer, right? How are we going to occupy their mind, occupy their hands, make sure they're not looking like this all the time? And I think that's number one right there is we've got to make sure that their time on social media, on the phone, it starts to become limited. Else we start to create a brain that's not thinking long term. It's thinking very short and Norman, right? We're trying to satisfy something too fast, too many times. But I like summer programs. And then, since it's summertime, I would like to see, especially maybe in the Delview, where you have a pool that's not open and it doesn't have a lifeguard. Let's get our children active in sports. Sports helps children to expand their horizon, and it makes them feel the self-assurance that they're looking for, the bigger self-esteem that they need. But we also have to make sure that we're supporting parents. Parents are the ultimate lifeline, and grandparents, right? To our children's growth, their happiness, how they feel about life, and looking to the future ahead. So just kind of giving it a little more of a broader answer instead of more of a city answer, because you are that solution for our children.
Did you hear something? Did that bring up something that you'd like to comment on? Okay. We will move to the third question. I'll remind each candidate just real quickly. We'll have 1:30 for the question, and then you'll get 30 additional seconds if you have something that spurs up that you'd like to comment on. We will start with you, Ms. Gibbons. Sorry, had an uninvited guest. Youth and young adults are key factors in building a thriving San Antonio that we all want. How will you ensure empowering our youth and our young adults is considered as a design policy and when you make investments? I'm going to read that last part again. How will you ensure that empowering our youth and young adults is considered as you design policy and make investments?
Okay, so we're going to go back to policy, but I think the biggest policy is you and I, the community. And I'm a community association president for Greater Harmony Hills. And that community concept is vital. It's more important than I think we realize at times. When's the last time you said, Johnny, go down the street and tell Miss Avila that I need a comfort shoe? The relationship that you have between neighbor to neighbor builds trust. Trust is an important factor when it comes to children, right? How many times do we say, okay, I do not want you to go outside and play in the yard, and they'll do it anyways, because the trust has to be built. If we build trust in our children, we build solid foundations to begin to grow when they go to school, when they go out to their sports and activities. So the policies, I don't know if I want to build a lot of policy around how you raise your children, but I think you want to have some policies that protect your rights as a parent, So that those are the policies that protect you, so that you can do what you need to do in growing good, healthy, strong children for the future. I have 6 adults, and there's a policy that I would say is 6 adult children, is we've got to be careful of the restrictions and the fees and impact fees that we have on businesses. Most of my children are self-employed like I have been for 30 years.
So I can talk a lot about infrastructure in our communities. I started a program working with the Bear County Education Coalition and a group CI now that does a lot of data analysis. And we mapped out a 1/4 mile radius, not even 2 miles, which is what the state funds transportation outside of 2 miles of schools. We mapped out a 1/4 mile radius around all of our schools to assess safe passageway to schools. One thing we know is if a kid can't get to school safely, if their street is flooded, are they going to actually want to go to school? And the state funds us based on our average daily attendance. So not only are you losing funding, but you're also losing that wealth of knowledge that a kid could be acquiring by being in school. So we measured a 1/4 mile radius around all of our schools, and we looked at several factors. We looked at what the sidewalks looked like, we looked at what traffic accidents were, we looked at crosswalks, we looked at street lights, and just in general, how many students were walking to the schools, working in partnership with the school districts. And then we've been looking at what would it look like to address all of those issues around one campus. Because the way that we do our sidewalk program right now and our infrastructure program is kind of hodgepodge all over the city. You see one block done here, one block done there, and then you get a call like, well, that's not really helpful. We didn't connect anything to anyone. So what would it look like to really reinvest our dollars around that one area? I know you guys a lot advocated for those funds to be funded for youth in the last budget cycle, and this would be one way we could do that. We could actually allocate dollars infrastructure based on where our youth are walking to schools.
I used to walk to school when I was a kindergartner. And believe it or not, I walked to school as a kindergarten. And I would agree our sidewalks need to have that repair, and our safety crosswalks. I do not understand why they are not repainted. And we need more safety walks that are at the middle of the street for those who get off of a bus and are walking directly to the location that they want to go to. But I also think that we have to have good safety measures in just our crosswalk guards. This is something that's really not funded by the city. And it's really, well, where does this funding come from? And how about the volunteers, and how about the PTA? All of those are going to be layers that are going to help your children to grow. I'm going to put it back on you as a community. Sure, we need more sidewalks. We need it for our elderly. We need it for you and I to walk our dog. We need it for our children. We need it for the quality of life that we have so we can get around and enjoy the outside. It's kind of our mini park area, right, outside of our door. But we also need to make sure that we are there for children in a great way, and we are there for families in a greater way. I think that the more you pull back government, the more your families can thrive. I know for me, raising 6 children, which by the way, I had 2 sets of twins. Isn't that a challenge? Sometimes it was. But when you raise that many children in a household and you have that much swirling around, the less government and the more I can pay attention to them, the better for me.
Any follow-up to that, Dr.?
The only thing I wanted to add was I was talking with the leadership over at Communities in Schools, and they shared with me that there is a city in, I think it was either Sweden or Switzerland, I could not remember which SW, that actually does their budget completely based on youth. So everything that they fund frames it from a what is this outcome going to be for our youth that are experiencing it. And I thought that was such an interesting idea. We just had a budget session on performance-based and outcomes-based budgeting. And what if our outcomes that we were targeting were 10% less crime in all of our areas for our youth populations? What if we addressed everything from a youth perspective? What would our city look like? And how could we really address the issues that we're facing if we focused on our kids? And I want to continue looking into that.
Any last words?
So I apologize for being late. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I love having children. I love being a mother. I love being a grandmother. The grandmother is a very special thing, isn't it? I mean, the love the kids give you when you're a grandmother. I think that it is vital that we cocoon our families as much as we can and continue to breathe life in them through the love and the care and not the policies alone.
I would ask that you all join me in a round of applause for both candidates.